Hello, YouTube friends. Another edition of spontaneous and random insights from the studio. Well, not so spontaneous because I made a few notes. I'd like to focus myself before I address those who are coming to my channel. I appreciate that. Hello. And some of the things that I talk about, I suspect, and this is something that I come across, is quite often people really don't understand certain things that I bring up. It's not because I am superior or I know something better. It's just what I'm interested in tends to have like, it's kind of like off hung, like this painting back here, okay? Just a quick mention of this. It's part of a series that I call Gates of Hell, and what you see there, that slogan that goes over the top of this is New World Order slogan, which is based on the ignominious gates of Auschwitz, above which it said Arbeit macht frei, a slogan that the bastards came up with as people walked off the boxcars into the camp. Anyway, I created a series of paintings, I think there's about 30 of them, that have this slogan repeated, or the form of this slogan is repeated on each painting, and it's a different mantra every time. It's like money talks, or whatever it is that I came up with that made sense to me, that I put above the painting. But the point is that the paintings are hung according to the direction of this image, this slogan. So that whichever way the slogan went, the painting has to hang so that it's level. That slogan is level and the painting is off high. And you wouldn't believe how irritated people get with hanging a painting like that. That it's, you know, the inclination we have is we want to straighten it out, especially ones that are just off a little bit. This is off a lot. This one is off a lot. But if they're hanging just, you know, if you're doing a show, people walk into it and the idea, the expectation is that it fits into that format, that we have what it means to look at a painting, and it always has to be hanging like that. Well, I thought I'm going to hang it according to that slogan in a painting, and it looks like in this case, Columbus and his ships are kind of falling. I guess they're sinking or falling or sliding off. Anyway, this is what I mean when I say that people may be irritated by some of the things that I say, because they have to do with my own level of insight and understanding, my investigation into what this reality is really about. What the hell are we living in anyway? What kind of a reality are we actually a part of? Is it some sort of a fabrication that exists in our minds? And this is nothing new. Philosophers way back into the Greek times asked, what is the nature of our reality? It's not, you didn't have to wait for Hollywood to come up with a silly, well, I say silly, with the idea of a matrix, that it's a simulation and something else is going on underneath. This has been understood by people of insight and wisdom for millennia. We understand that there is a manipulation going on. It's just a question of how deep, how far, on what level this is happening. And my own contribution, what I always say, I give you something to chew on. When you look at a painting or when you look at this work, what I produce is something that is likely going to irritate a person on some level, but hopefully there is enough of what we call beauty to attract you to it, or something that feels you're compelled to want to see it. And quite often in history, in art history, what appeared to be ugly, if you want to evoke the archetype, the Van Gogh paintings, which were considered ugly at the time, are now some of the most expensive artworks ever produced in the history of artness. So the idea that something ugly actually has value, and ugly in the sense that it's irritating, it kind of jars us on some level. It creates a sense of What is that? It's like, you know, my whole shtick and what I go on about conformity and being compliant with a system that doesn't work. It's like the only way to get myself out of it is, in a sense, almost to irritate myself out of it by producing something that is quite, well, it's unusual. It may be perceived as unusual, but I always make the distinction that it's not an idiosyncrasy. What I perceive of the culture that we live in now propagate work, art that is basically just idiosyncratic, and it doesn't give us anything to chew on in that kind of sense of longevity. Where did we come from? Where are we going? This feeling that I am connected to in terms of my extended family, as I call it, of art makers and thinkers, people that have a connection to their source, that inner source. The greatest art always had that connection. It's not just something of brilliance that somebody who's clever can produce. That in itself is wonderful too. Yes, I have no problem with somebody being extremely eye-hand coordinated that can make a drawing where an eyeball looks like an eyeball and a hand, and, you know, this kind of elevated level of expertise, which is the standard, classically speaking. This has established itself as a standard. It was being challenged quite primarily with people that possibly, I would say, with Courbet, it began to be challenged very seriously. Courbet's work, check out Courbet, Gustave Courbet in the mid-1800s. And that escalated into the Impressionists, I suppose, and you have Vincent, and then you have Dada. And the idea that the standard always needs to be challenged is also an irritant to the general population, especially the culturati, the people that have taken it upon themselves to be the beacons of our wisdom and insight, and they always get it wrong. They always miss it, but they establish themselves as the beacon. So you have, they promote Damien Hirst and Koons and Schnabel and Basquiat and Warhol after the fact. Now with Koons and Hirst, I think, yeah, there might have been a revolutionary sense maybe in the beginning, but they were propagated, promoted, like Dylan, these people, Bowie, they're propagated by this culture. They don't offer us anything to chew on. They may create pleasantries and beauties that are basically idiosyncrasies that have nothing to do with what I'm talking about, the source. So let me go on a little bit. And some of this may make sense to you because I'm unraveling the reality that I exist in every day in some way, and you can't unravel it unless you're somewhere irritated by it. You have to have the insight that you have must also confront you in a way that allows you to have a sense of insight into what it is that we're confronted by. And how does this insight establish itself? And most people, and I'm going to address now the YouTube syndrome genre, which I am a part of, but I want to just sort of reference this to people continuously giving us the good news, blaming the usual suspects. And I've always said I am on board with that. I want to expose the bastards as much as anyone else, and the greatest bastards in this reality, whatever this reality is that we are a part of, the greatest destructive force at this time, I'm not saying it's the only one, but it is the nuclear criminal syndicate that is threatening all life on Earth. And there are many other versions of this, but they have taken the field in the biggest way that I have perceived. And for anyone to go on blaming the usual suspects and not referring to this catastrophe called Fukushima, there's something not quite right. Something doesn't quite fit for me. When I hear people talking about the usual suspects, which they're right about, without understanding that this is going on under our noses, big time. These isotopes, these incredibly toxic isotopes, along with all the other stuff. But this is the jewel in the crown, people. And how can anyone miss this? It's given to us. And the reason people miss it is here's the crux for me. That insight only happens not by a perception of the external world, but our inner world. So when I make a painting, when I do stuff, the stuff you see behind me, and this newer work, which I call broken symmetries, they're very irritating. They start to rattle my own perceptions, but it comes from an inner incentive. It comes from an initiative that originates within me, not out there. Although I am connected, I am part of this real world. The suffering, the cancers, all the stuff that is being unleashed on us, I am part of that. But I have to understand it through an inner world. I cannot comprehend the level or the degree of the reality I'm part of without doing my own inner work. And that means being irritated by things, meaning I don't want to conform to a vision, to a view that has been regurgitated many times. It has to be in my own way. It's just the nature of this experience, that each person is literally a dimension. It's like, no, not even each atom has its own signature. It's like the individuation of this is phenomenal. It's so complex. So to say, well, I'm just going to regurgitate what somebody else said and believe reality to be complete and understood by me because I regurgitate somebody else's stuff doesn't make sense. We have to verify this. I have to verify this through my own process. Okay. And I started off saying that some of the things I say may not make sense, and that's a good thing because it is something that I literally have established for the first time for myself. So how could anyone else understand something that I have established for myself for the first time? Like these broken symmetry images, my sculpt paintings. What am I saying? All right, and the random insights, I'm going to go to the notes. I'm going to go to my notes. And what I thought about, what I wanted to talk about was, in order to unravel this experience, what we call reality, there has to be, as I always say, this inner work. And who do we trust? Who do we trust to give us an indication of what it is that we're involved in? And it's not based on what you have on YouTube, this reality, people coming out, making YouTubes. Generally speaking, 99 out of 100 times, the finger points out there, okay? So the idea that people are pointing you in a direction already is a form of subversion. And I'm not saying that I don't listen to perspectives and what people have understood, but as long as that finger is pointing out there, we're going to be in trouble. And some YouTubers have understood this and say, who can you trust? What is the truth anymore? And the truth is, I've always said, a moving target. The truth is not something that is external, but is internal. And like I say, if each atom is its own signature in the cosmos, in eternity, how about transferring that into the idea of there are 7 billion, supposedly, this is the number of people on this planet, the 7 billion realities unfolding simultaneously around us. And we're always pointing at the same usual suspects. I refer, though, again, to the idea of the nuclear criminals who are saturating our environment with some really nasty shit is happening. This is not my imagination. This is actually happening. But within the larger scheme of things, I want to know how I counter that which is what I call dysfunctional. How do I create a counter to this function? Is it merely saying, oh, those bastards, those fuckers, those reptiles, those pricks, I've identified them, you know, and I know who they are. So here comes, how do we move? How do we move forward? How can we establish, if you want to call it the truth? And how do we establish the truth about anything? And when I listen to YouTubers, there's a little spat again between two of them that I listen to. One is called Mr. Cat Eye, who I really like. He deciphers numbers. And another guy that I'm a little bit leery of this fellow. He comes off like the hoodie-wearing Swami type for the nerds in the basement, this Quinn Michael guy. Now, they both present interesting aspects of this reality. And the reason, and they have a spat because Cat Eye said that Quinn Michael is reenacting a ritual that is tied to the nefarious dark side of our nature called I think he calls it time phone hack, whatever that means. It's like time is manipulated. Yeah, I guess time is manipulated. And Cat Eye goes through numbers. He analyzed the name and he said, yep, it's part of the deception that is being created for us. A reality that is not our own, is someone else's version of existence and what we need to experience, which is fundamentally grounded in dysfunction, not function. And they're having a little spat, and one is saying each one. Cat Eye was very respectful. Quinn Michaels feels offended because he's like, he comes out of this sort of weird make-believe world. And I'm not saying his reality isn't what he says it is, but there is no experience, no depth, no insight. That's what I'm looking for. So I fundamentally have discarded him, other than keeping my, I keep an eye on what people are doing. It's kind of entertaining. What Cat Eye says, Quinn Michaels is entertainment. And I'm not about entertainment, although I will not deny that a painting on the wall is fundamentally, I'm providing a relief. Entertainment is a form of relief. So I'm not undermining entertainment, but when it comes to the idea of truth, I lean toward, I suppose, a more sober, serious perspective. So anyway, Quinn Michael said, Cat Eye has red and black in his presentations, which is a little curious. I have to admit, it is a little curious. The way I have the red and the black, because I said the nuclear bastards took my yellow. I love yellow. And they introduced my yellow into their nefarious, dark, ugly scheme of destroying all life on the planet. So this is much more appropriate. I love red and black too in paintings. I love red and black. I don't associate myself with the idea of the 666 beast, black and white. It's, as Cat Eye says, once you understand it, you're not a part of it. You don't reenact. You don't regurgitate. You actually take that insight into some meaningful presentation to others. You know what I'm saying? So I'm kind of leaning toward the idea that Cat Eye is, Mr. Cat Eye is using the black and white as a revelation rather than as a communication of, no, you stick with the, he says 666, the beast is horrible, shitty, but then he does the colors. Yeah, I don't think so. But it is curious. Anyway, so to establish ourselves in what I talk about, how to overcome our adversaries, the world, the reality out there. How can I establish something? How can I be of value to you? How can I change the world around me to be better? This is something all kind of, what is that? The normal, what we consider to be a normal human being, still connected to their birthright. I love that idea of birthright. What is it that makes us want to get up in the morning? Well, one of the things that I have noticed in myself is I really like to make things better in some way, whether that is tending my garden or renovating the house or cleaning the crap around the house and cleaning it up. It's like making it better, whatever that means to each of us. Having like a beautiful display of flowers on the window or tomatoes you're growing in the winter, whatever that is, makes you feel better, makes others feel better. This is like something I actually, and I perceive in others as well, to be functioning. And it's part of our birthright. I connect this to our birthright to make the place better. And it has been usurped by the bastards who try to tell us they're making things better, like the white coats who invented to split the atom, say, we're going to make it better. It's going to be cheap, clean, and safe. You're going to have all the energy you want, and just give us all your money. We'll destroy all life on the planet, but it's better, isn't it? It's a lot better. George Carlin got this. He's much better at the humor of this. I'm trying to be humorous. Clean, cheap, and safe, yeah. So how do I proceed, number one, with what a lot of people on YouTube are having trouble with, which is truth. And the people out there undermining our birthright. And fundamentally how they do it, this is what I say, they point the finger. Beware of people that are pointing their finger. Am I pointing the finger? I'm just saying, I'm not specifically pointing my finger. I'm just saying beware of understanding or creating your own sense of knowledge and wisdom from people who are pointing the finger. It doesn't work that way. You have to find some part within yourself that verifies and identifies something that is real to you. That's why I make paintings. That's why I love making paintings, because they verify something in myself as I proceed through this, and it's taken quite a while. It's taken quite a while. I mean, I've been doing this for close to 50 years. And it's taken a while for me to have a sense of myself as being valuable. Okay, valuable is not the right word. Of being able to give you something to chew on. That's the best way I can put it. It's like it's of some sort of significance to you. And it's taken a while for me to get to that point. And it's no longer spectacle. It's actually something felt, heartfelt within myself. In my own day-to-day work that I do, I come as much as I possibly can to the studio to continue my commitment toward this unraveling of this reality from an inner perspective. So I fall into this blaming and pointing the fingers rightfully. Like I say, that the criminals that run the joint have to be pointed out. But truth is not established through the external world. That's what I'm saying. And it doesn't make sense to most people. 99 out of 100 say no. It's like what I feel, what I sense, that's all that matters. And that is how I connect truth. And the biblical rants and ravings of people that are so inundated in something they have no clue about. The Bible is such a complex code. To just make fairy tales and stories out of it is the most banal, unreasonable thing to do. And to quote and make, evil and all that kind of stuff. So, okay. What's this? 22 minutes. What I'm thinking today, we cannot analyze our existence by looking outside. We need to primarily look inward. And the process is a difficult one because I've mentioned this quite often. It's easy to forgive, but it's a lot harder to ask for forgiveness because it requires introspection and a true regret in some way. And where does this understanding of truth, of this what is that feeling that something is right, that something feels right? It's not a matter of truth, but something that feels right. How do we establish that? How do we begin to trust ourselves? And we're always fooled by people. We're always fooled because there's some snake oil salesmen that they're out there all the time. They have a clever way. I am fooled. I want to believe. I want to believe in people. I don't want to be cynical and say bastards all the time. I want to believe people. I honestly do. I want to believe in people. So my inclination is when I hear something I'd rather be fooled than be cynical, I suppose. That's what I'm saying. But ultimately, it'll come back. It'll filter through me and I say, yeah, this makes no sense. And I discard. So how do we get to this point? How do we get to this point of being aware of our reality, what it means in the external and the internal world? And here is my formula again. I'm going to talk about this from the point of view that there are fundamental nature. We have a fundamental nature, what I also call our birthright, which is, for the most part, in people's analysis of the world out there, it is not addressed. It is not understood because it has not been worked on enough. It's not enough to point the finger. It has to come through an inner realization, a strongly felt commitment. It's kind of like that, a vision even, that people live their lives with a vision. And it doesn't have to be like nuclear science. It doesn't have to be like physics, brilliant mathematics vision. A vision is just something that attaches us to a very essential inner part of ourselves, which is why I'm making these sculpt paintings, which are disrupted symmetries, which make sense in a long history of visualizing the external world through an inner understanding. And I'll give an explanation of this, what I've understood to the extent that I can understand it. I'll do it in another time. So how do I get to this point? How do I get to the point of actually exercising my birthright and feeling good about the world that I see around me, even on the level of dysfunction that is all around me? And I'm fortunate because I'm not in the trenches like the people that are most vulnerable, like children. Children are the most vulnerable from the point of view that the bastards just sort of sweep in. They're cowards, these people, these big people attacking little people, these cowards, these degenerates, these people that feel themselves empowered by being able to pummel an innocent, weaker creature. What kind of thing goes on? Which is why they're so hated. These people are the people that abuse the innocent, the vulnerable, the children, minorities, whatever you want to go into. The people that are part of the abuse are the most degenerate souls. I don't believe there is any recourse for these beings, like the Aleister Crowley types. They will end up in a very, very unpleasant situation ultimately. That's my conclusion. So I recommend, whatever that inclination within all of us might be, there are kernels of it, and some more and some less. We got to come to terms with that, because if we don't, we're screwed like we are now. The reason we are in the shitter we're in is because we fundamentally allowed our own nature to be compromised. And one of the worst compromises is to allow this to happen to the vulnerable, to the children. We cannot allow this. The world is finished. The reality is finished the way we see it, unless we clean this up. It's straightforward. And I'm pointing my finger. I'm pointing my finger at the fuckers, the bastards, that do not want to face this within themselves and just continue to indulge. You Aleister Crowley fuckers out there, I am pointing my finger, because this is something that each one of us, we need to put a stop to it within ourselves, and we'll stop it out there. We'll peripheralize. We'll isolate these people. And this is my notion again. This is how it works. And there have been comments. I was listening to Vegematic with his Hambone, who is an ornery. They're both sort of enjoying their orneriness. I appreciate that kind of, I don't know, what is that sort of, I've lived my life, I'm an old fucker now, and what the hell, you know, I have nothing to lose. I understand that. But one of the things that, and I believe it to be more of a challenge, when you listen to people like this, I perceive them as challenging our perception. This is like they're being irritable, right? They're being irritants through their own irritability. And they're saying there is no hope, we're lost, we're fucked. Maybe true. Maybe true. I mean, from the point of view that, as I understand, funnily, they did not address why are we so fucked? Just because, what is the pollution that is going to sink the ship? It's the nuclear fucking criminals. And I'm using ornery language here. Just well, not that it irritates anybody, but I guess on a level it irritates me. So what is it that in this interview happened was, well, we're so screwed. There is no recovery from this. What does that mean? And this is the mistake. But I think I give them credit. I'm thinking that they're saying by confronting us with this sort of ultimatum, there's like rattling you, but it doesn't work. Chris, it doesn't work. That rattling people with the finger pointing doesn't work. And that if there is no hope, it doesn't work. It doesn't create any sort of feeling in anyone that makes them motivate. It actually does the opposite. So I don't do it. What I attach myself to is this sense, what I have every morning, I have a sense of hope. I take my breath. In my first waking state, I take a breath. I say thank you. Every morning, I say thank you, which is attached to the idea that I'm alive. And as long as I'm alive, I have this sense of hope about being able to be a better person in myself. This is what I'm saying thank you to. I have this level of hope. And now, if hope disappears, we no longer are able to feed. This is in my mind. I'm becoming philosophical here. We no longer have the ability to feed what I understand to be eternity. There is a connection between hope and eternity for us as we exist in this reality. We need to feed within ourselves this connection to eternity, what religions have always tried to usurp and make their heaven and their hell and all that kind of shit. We are attached to a mystery. We are part of a mystery. And hope links us to the part that I call eternity. So without hope, there is none of that existing. And if Chris and Hambone feel that there is no hope, honestly, I feel sorry for you. And Chris said to Hambone, no, I still have hope. And it's keep it, because this is something that attaches you to your own breathing. Because if you didn't have it, and I don't believe the Hambone guy because he's still breathing. You do not breathe unless you have hope, okay? So forget about the pronunciations and all that kind of stuff. It's not true. And this is sort of like a trilogy of what I would say a formula to get us into that state of hope, which is fundamentally our birthright, which is this feeling we have within us of caring. What I always say, we can decide on this, that we care. And care is not something that is isolated. It throws a blanket over everything. So whatever I come into contact with or who I come in contact with, I have a fundamental notion of this feeling of whatever you want to call it, this, to preserve, to protect, to whatever that is caring. So the caring and the compassion will reflect in a level of delight that allows us to perceive eternity on some level. This is a mystery. I don't know how that works, but through this sense of birthright that I feel that I have, whatever that was given to me within this mystery comes through this kind of sense, this caring, this compassion, a feeling of delight in myself when it's exercised, which opens what I call my romance with eternity, which is my art. My art is a romance with eternity, basically coming from an inner struggle that I have every day to become a better person. So can I point my finger? Can I go out there and it's like create wisdom through blame? I don't think so. It doesn't work, people. But it does work from the point of view that I will reveal the usual suspects through my own work, through my own inner work. And there isn't a formula other than what I said. You got to care. You got to care. That's basically the door that opens. And about the truth on YouTube and all that kind of stuff, some of it, people may be honest. I prefer honesty to truth. I've always said this. I detect honesty, even if they're wrong. I prefer honesty to truth. I have to tell you this. And have this, you have to have your own litmus test for this. And I'm taken in quite often. I'm taken, and I'd rather be taken in than be cynical. So keep your heart open, keep the caring, and the hope will lead us to becoming better people. It is the only thing we have at our disposal in terms of our own feeling. That's my conclusion on this, and I think I covered everything. Yeah, it's kind of spontaneous and random from the point of view that what I originally started my channel on. It's like insights. Whether they're insights or not, it's something you decide. But I will exercise this sense of artistry, which is based on kind of wondering, the curiosity. The curiosity doesn't have a result at the end of it. Anything could happen. This is my feeling. Anything, when I step in the studio in the morning, anything could happen. And this is the feeling that you carry into your day-to-day life. Anything could happen on that level of becoming, and becoming a better person. Anything could happen. I'll end it here. My best to all of you.